Today I'm going to be making some braised red potatoes with lemon and chives. Now I've made this recipe once before and it turned out really, really delicious. I mean, some of the best potatoes I've ever had. And on top of that, it's a really easy recipe. So if you want some delicious red potatoes, cook it with me. First things first, we're going to want to gently wash and dry our potatoes. You don't want the outsides of them too dirty. So get them under some water, run them under some water. And just lightly dry them off. Okay, those are cleaned now. Then you just want to cut them in half. Best in half as you can. There we go, 1.5 pounds of red potatoes cut in half and cleaned. Then you need to peel 3 cloves of garlic. I like garlic, so I'm going to do 5. But basically the tip with garlic is smash it, then that will allow you to peel the skin off. Oops. There we go, see, skin's completely off. Now from here you can dice it or mince it, whatever the recipe calls for. In this recipe it wants them whole at first, because later they're going to be minced. So just continue that process until you have your 3 or as many cloves as you want of garlic ready. Now it says to arrange your cut potatoes, cut side down, you know, flat side on the bottom so they can stand up, and a 12-inch skillet. You need a big skillet. You'll see once you start putting the potatoes in there. Okay, then we need to add 2 cups of water. Here's our 2 cups of water. Then it said 3 fresh sprigs of thyme. You know, thyme is just a spice. So there's 1. There's 2. Make sure you can soak them in there. There's the 3rd one. Then you need 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now don't cut it up anymore. You want it to be a whole chunk like this. I know it looks weird, but it worked really well. Okay, then your 3 cloves of garlic, or more. In my case, I'm doing 5. I like garlic. A good tip, too, that I did the first time, I forgot to do this time, is when you're adding your salt, it's good to kind of sprinkle it everywhere. Kind of an even coating, so if you can, remember to do that. And then you need 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So there's half a teaspoon. And there's my 1/4 teaspoon, so that's 3/4 a teaspoon of salt. Now bring this to a simmer over medium-high heat. A simmer is basically a low boil, just below a boil. So get it on your burner. After you've added everything, turn it up to medium-high, and then wait for it to begin to bubble and be really close to a boil. This is basically a simmer. Honestly, it's probably closer to a boil at this point. Now what we do now is we reduce the heat of the stovetop to medium and then cover it. Something flat, you want to cover it really well. A lot of pans come with lids, that'd be a great idea too. So cover it and simmer it like this for 15 minutes. Now that it's been simmering covered for 15 minutes, remove your lid. It says discard your thyme, use a slotted spoon. So get your thyme and just have a trash can ready and throw that stuff away. Okay, now you got to go hunting for your garlic pieces. Transfer them to a nice cutting board, the same board that I would cut your chives on, and your lemon on if you're going to use a fresh lemon for lemon juice, which I recommend you do. And then once you get your garlic out, you're going to want to turn your heat up to a medium-high, and then make sure you swirl the pan. This will slowly evaporate the water and begin to sizzle your butter. There we go. I had a lot of garlic in here, so I got a lot of garlic to be looking for. It shouldn't take you as long if you only use 3 cloves. Actually, that's most of mine as well. So increase your heat to medium-high. And what we're doing now is called a vigorous, it's a very intense simmer. And it says make sure you swirl your pan every so often. So do one of these. Just keep an eye on it, swirl it occasionally, and you'll notice the water begin to evaporate. For this recipe, you need 2 tablespoons of minced chives. So there's some chives. And a teaspoon of lemon juice, which I'm going to use a fresh lemon for. To mince your chives, I just put them together in a bunch. Make sure the end you start cutting at, they're all about the same height. Doesn't have to be perfect. And the way I would do this is just hold them all together tightly and just start at one end and cut really, really tiny little slices. Similar to cutting green onions. Go as thin as you can. Now the recipe doesn't call for it, but I'm going to add some basil as well, just because I like basil. So roll up your basil. I'm just using basically the same technique I used. For this recipe, you need a teaspoon of lemon juice. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to squeeze it myself from a fresh lemon. That should be enough for a teaspoon. And then the rest I'm just going to cut into wedges, as garnishes or in drinks. I prefer this to buying the bottled lemon juice, but that works really well also. So there we go. I'm going to store these in a plastic container. Now get your bowl I was talking about. We're going to mince our garlic in here as well, but first we need a teaspoon of lemon juice. I'm going to squeeze. I'm going to eyeball this. You don't have to be exactly. Okay. That's part of it. Make sure you don't get any seeds in there. Okay, I'd say that's close to a teaspoon of lemon juice. Probably a little less, but it doesn't have to be exact. What I'm going to do, when your garlic is cool enough to handle, which mine is, you're going to want to mince it. So that means chop into really tiny pieces. Or if you have a mincer, a garlic mincer, that works really well too. Looks like one of these things, so kind of pushes it through. Kind of comes out the end, kind of like those Play-Doh toys you would play with as a kid. There we go, we got our minced garlic in there. Minced pretty well. Make sure there's no big pieces. Then we need 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Just straight up pepper. So here's 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. You're going to want to mix that all together. So mix the garlic and the lemon juice and the pepper. Makes a really good mixture. Okay, and it looks like most of my water is simmered away. So let's go back to our potatoes now. As you can see, make sure you still keep swirling it around. We're to the point where our water's evaporated. This brown mixture you see in the bottom, it's just the butter. So make sure your potatoes are still good to move around. At this point, it says kind of swirl it continuously. And we're going to cook it for 4 to 6 more minutes with just the butter evaporating. So make sure you keep it going 4 to 6 minutes or until the bottoms are brown and spotty. So we look at one now. It's getting there. It's actually really close already. You see the bottom. It's really close. I'd say a couple more minutes. Okay, it's at the point now where if you look at the bottoms, you'll see that they are brown and spotty. Like if you look at this one. So at this point, remove it from heat. So definitely take off the heat. And then if you want, you can even add it to a bowl. That's what I'm going to do. So get your bowl ready, and then I'm just going to put my potatoes into it immediately. They look and smell really good, just like the first time I made this recipe. Now that you got them in a bowl, it says to add your chives. So I'm going to add my chives and my basil. Makes for a good combination. And then it says to add your garlic mixture, which is, you know, your garlic, your pepper, and your lemon juice. That coats them really well. It says toss to coat, so I'm just going to stir them. They smell good, they look good, and they're like last time, they taste really good too. So let's sit down and have a bite. Now the fun part of this recipe is trying these braised red potatoes. They were really good the first time, and I didn't make them any differently. I added basil, that's about it, and used fresher lemon juice. So they should taste just as good. Okay? They're good. They're really good. What's good about this recipe, I got it out of a cooking magazine, is that the outside, if you cook it just right, you know, long enough, the outside is nice and crisp, but the inside is still nice and soft. So it's like the perfect consistency of done. Not only that, the spices add to it, and it's really delicious. So if you want some great, delicious red potatoes, try this recipe.